little stuffy, or fuzzy wuzzy. They're little, stuffed animals or whatever the case may be. Cuddle deprivation, which to a baby girl is absolutely the worst thing that you can do, because that's one of the things that they crave the most. And I highly, highly recommend that you reserve that for something that is just incredibly disrespectful that they have done. Just terrible, and don't maintain that one for a long period of time. So they will really get the point if you express your disappointment in them, because they're going to become sad. They're going to want that physical affection. And if you withhold it from them for just a little while, no, you've been bad. You need to sit and think about that and say it. You are on physical touch and cuddle deprivation for this many minutes, half hour, an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. But don't be cruel with it. Don't lose sight of the fact that to a baby girl, that's going to be, the cruelest thing that you can possibly do to them. And it's nothing to use as leverage or as playing a game with them in that sense. That's just bordering on abuse. And I know that to new people or people that haven't experienced that particular type of DS relationship, that may sound odd, but that in fact is a fact. So another thing to talk about, and it's really cool. I had a few things written down, and then I'm looking at this site, submissiveguide.com/encyclopedia/switch. It had laid out some myths that I had just finished talking to my wife about. And one of the first myths that drive me crazy about someone who is a bottom or someone who is a submissive as far as a male goes, or someone who is a switch as far as a male goes, is that they're automatically bisexual or gay. And if they are, fine. But that's not what defines the submissive, bottom, or switch at all. It's two separate things. Yes, in the gay community, they do refer to tops and bottoms, and switches are tops and bottoms and versatile, but that's a different community. And there are some interlinkings, just like with the heterosexual community, or, it's not just the LGBTQ. It kind of puzzles me why it's so difficult for people to understand why words can mean different things, even though words that we use every day may mean something else, or you spell them a little bit different and they mean something else, but they sound the same. It's just, it's common sense. So here's your introduction to that common sense if you didn't know that already. So switches are confused because they haven't met the right person. That's another myth. And that's about as much of a BS thing to say. And keep in mind, I live in the South, and some places that you go, I've been all over the U.S., and it's true anywhere you go in the U.S. There are some people that just have some backwoods ways of thinking. It doesn't matter if it's in New York City, in Los Angeles, in little town Georgia on the outskirts of Atlanta. I have lesbian friends, I have gay friends, I have transgender friends, I have heterosexual friends. And one of the things that I talk to with some of my lesbian friends are their torment as a lesbian in the South. And the most frequent thing that they tell me that they hear are some, idiot saying, well, you just ain't had it with the right man yet. That'd make you straight. Yeah, whatever. And it's the same with the BDSM switch. And the myth that they're just confused because they haven't met the right person yet. They haven't met the right dominant to make them a submissive, or met the right submissive to bring out the dominant traits in them. No, some people just enjoy it, and that's perfectly fine. As I always say, as long as it doesn't include women or children, or doesn't include children or animals, and everyone is consenting, safe, sane, consensual, and informed, then do what you want. Make it fun. It's your BDSM. You have fun with it. Yes, there are guidelines to go by. There are things that are set in place to keep people safe, like safe words, informed consent, these type of things. But there shouldn't be anybody standing in the corner while you're in a scene with someone, coaching you along, telling you, well, you need to do that like this or whatever. Now, if you go to some of the events, you can have that, and that's really cool, especially if you're, trying to become a rigger, which is someone who works with rope and does a lot of rope bondage, or shibari, which is the Japanese silk rope. You have somebody teaching you how to do that. That's different than just in your personal life. So, and I'm a huge, huge supporter of it is your BDSM. You own it. Make it work for you and your partner. Just make certain that it is safe, sane, consensual, and informed. Switches can't be successful as a real dom or as a real sub. That's another big misconception. The former submissive that I spoke of a few minutes ago. In the beginning, she was quite successful. In the end, there were some issues that we both had, and it was between us and in our lives outside of that was causing conflict, in a business trip that she took that created some havoc that she had to take. There were a lot of things. It wasn't the fact that she just couldn't submit. I did say she did a lot of topping from the bottom, and that was the case. However, when I would call her down on it, then she was called out on it, and it continued. She actually thought that I liked the playful banter of it, I think, and some of it I did. But when it got serious, that's like I said in last week's episode, referring to brats, that's not really my thing. I can do without like the intense banter back and forth to the point where I can't tell just exactly how serious you are. Are you being playful or are you being something else? And then the common mistakes that you get into as a switch are pretty much the same as with other stuff, or being a dominant, being a submissive, being a top, being a bottom. Proper mental state to scene is your head in the game. Very important. Your head's got to be in the game. Communication breakdown, not getting into detail and talking about things as they come up. You can't wait. You got to talk about it, and you got to be okay with talking about it. And then not knowing the difference between being dominant and domineering. That does apply to switches, because that is something that some people in the BDSM community and outside of it will participate in a style of DS or top-bottom relationship, and they will submit to one person and typically be a bottom. They'll typically be undergoing physical pain due to a personal trauma or something that they are reliving or trying to work through, and they're using it for therapy. In mild cases, I won't say that it's okay, but it's more acceptable than in severe cases. In those severe cases, people need to seek out professional help. BDSM is not for your therapy. It is very important that you keep that in mind. As a dominant, if I meet someone, and I recently met someone who is an addict, an active addict. When they first introduced themselves to me, they made it clear that they were in recovery and had been in recovery for a year and a half. And I still don't know if it was later that night or if they just flat out lied to me, but I found out that they were not in recovery, that they are, in fact, an active meth user. Now, they're somebody who is not part of the BDSM community. They were interested in becoming involved and learning more. And when I found this out, and they got into detail with me about the reasons why they use and the psychological issues, the abuse and the torment. As I've said before, I worked in the mental health field for many years. I worked at an inpatient facility. We did drug and alcohol detox, plus handled severe schizophrenia, bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, dissociative identity disorder, all forms of autism. And I mean, you name it, we saw it. So I know that when someone like that presents themselves to me and wanting me to mentor them or take them on as a submissive, whichever one, that the first step for them is seeking professional help. Because even if I was still working in that field, it would be unethical. And not working in that field, it is unethical for me to try to take their psychiatric well-being, which will lead to their physical well-being, into my hands and treat them. It's a conflict of interest, and it is absolutely one of the worst things that you can do. It is important for switches to understand the details of being dominant versus domineering. And I went into very good detail about that last week, so I'm not going to hit that deep again, but I did want to add that. So a summary of the switch, as far as kind of the behind the scenes, I guess, of what I think about it and what other people think about it. Not that it really matters, but people often shy away from admitting they like to switch because they fear such negativity, derision, I guess would be a good word for it, where they're being almost accosted for being a switch by some of these old school people that they may respect and admire for certain skills that they, there's one person in particular that I know that she has some of the most amazing skills when it comes to impact tools, floggers, single tail, double tail, any of the whips, which are single tail and double tail are two things that I will not use on anyone because you can seriously injure somebody with them. You can take a single tail whip and hit somebody just the right way, or which is just the wrong way, and end up slicing them open. I've seen it happen by somebody who is inexperienced, and a person volunteered to be their guinea pig before they had actually stayed at home and practiced on a pillow, practiced on a light switch. When you can take a single tail and consistently 100 out of 100 times turn a light switch on and off and never touch anything else and not break the light switch, then you're starting to become talented with it. So anyway, there is this very professional dominatrix who she is a true master. She's British, but she is a true master of impact tools, impact implements. I greatly admire her for that. However, she is very old school in the belief that a person is either a top or a bottom, or a dominant or submissive, or a dominant and a top, or a submissive and a bottom. And that's just simply not the case. Now, why does she feel that way? I don't know. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and talk to her about that. I would love to, but that hasn't taken place yet. And if it does, hopefully it will be an episode of Kuldrin's Krypt podcast. But just because I admire her, this is the point that I'm getting at. Just because I admire her skills and her mastery, and it's such a beautiful mastery, especially when she goes into the Florentine style with floggers. It's a true art form. It not getting that twisted up and thinking, well, because she does that so well, and because she's such a master at that, then she must know everything there is to know, and just taking on her beliefs as my own. You've got to get to know what you feel, what you believe, and not be judgmental. And that's the main thing, is in our community, it is such a thing to not be judgmental. But yet a lot of us will, they're a switch. No, a switch is a very important function. I have seen a lot with switches who were the bottom in the scene. And if it weren't for them, then those particular nights, I may not have had anyone to scene with.